Jack Harlow stood at the viewport of the space station, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. His reflection showed a man of 42 years with short gray hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent too much time under harsh suns on distant planets. 20 years in Earth's military had prepared him for many things, but not for this. "Officer Harlow, the Admiral is ready for your final briefing," said a young lieutenant. Jack nodded and followed the officer through the station's curved hallways. The gravity felt slightly off. They had already begun adjusting it downward to match Confederation standards. His body would need time to adapt, just like his mind. Admiral Peters waited in the secure briefing room. She was a stern woman with keen eyes that had seen humanity's first stumbling steps into the galactic community. "Sit down, Jack," she said. "What I'm about to tell you isn't in the official mission documents." Jack took a seat at the metal table. I assumed there would be more. The Admiral activated a holographic display showing an alien being. It stood taller than a human with a reptilian appearance, covered in natural armor plates and multiple limbs. Its eyes were positioned for maximum awareness of surroundings. "This is a Kravak," she explained. "They joined the Confederation 3 standard years ago. Their planet is much like Earth: high gravity, extreme weather, dangerous predators, and high radiation levels." Jack studied the image. "They look built for combat. Like us, they evolved on what the Confederation calls a Class 12 death world. Before humans and a Kravak, the Confederation had never encountered intelligent life from planets so hostile." The Admiral brought up a new image showing various alien species. All appeared more fragile than humans: thinner limbs, larger eyes, delicate features. Most Confederation species evolved on garden worlds with stable climates, limited predators, and low radiation. They find us, and the Kravak, terrifying. Our physical capabilities, pain tolerance, and aggressive problem-solving seem monstrous to them. Jack frowned. "So I'm supposed to convince them we're not monsters?" "Exactly. You'll represent humanity aboard the Vanguard during these negotiations. The Confederation is deciding whether to grant us full membership or restrict our expansion to our home system." "Because they're afraid of us." Admiral Peters nodded. "We can survive environments that would kill them in minutes. We heal from injuries that would be fatal to them. And our history of warfare." She shook her head. "They find it difficult to understand how a species can fight itself so viciously yet claim to be peaceful." Jack thought about this for a moment. "What about the Kravak? Are they our allies in this?" "Unknown. They've been in the Confederation longer but face similar prejudice. Your mission has 2 parts, Jack. Officially, you're our diplomatic representative. Unofficially, I need you to assess the Kravak. Find out if they're potential allies or competitors." The room fell silent as Jack processed this information. Outside the viewport, stars glittered coldly. "When do I leave?" he asked finally. "The Vanguard departs in 6 hours. Your team includes Dr. Kate Nelson, our top exobiologist, and Alan Morgan, a cultural specialist. They're waiting for you in the prep area." Jack stood and straightened his uniform. "Any final advice?" Admiral Peters smiled thinly. "Don't arm wrestle anyone. Apparently, you might break their limbs without meaning to." As Jack walked to meet his team, he felt the weight of Earth's higher gravity in his bones and muscles. Everything that made him human, his strength, endurance, and adaptability, made him dangerous in the eyes of the galaxy. He would need to be careful. One wrong move could condemn humanity to isolation. Yet something told him that being a Deathworlder might prove valuable in ways the Confederation couldn't imagine. Behind him, the blue sphere of Earth continued to shrink, a deadly paradise that had forged humanity into something the galaxy had rarely seen before. Jack stepped off the transport shuttle onto Harmony Station and immediately felt his body become lighter. The artificial gravity was set to just over half of Earth's pull. Around him, his human teammates were adjusting as well. Dr. Kate Nelson bounced slightly on her toes, while Alan Morgan gripped a handrail to steady himself. "Remember," Alan whispered, "slow movements. Most species here find sudden human motion threatening. The welcoming area buzzed with activity. Aliens of all shapes moved through the vast chamber. Some floated on anti-gravity platforms. Others walked on various numbers of legs. Jack noticed how many turned to stare at the human delegation. A tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms approached them. "Welcome to Harmony Station. I am Protocol Officer Ziv. You will follow me to the diplomatic quarters." As they walked through the massive space station, Jack studied everything. The ceilings were higher than necessary for humans. The air smelled clean but strange, less oxygen than Earth. The lighting was dimmer, with more colors in the purple range. "The summit begins tomorrow," Ziv explained. 18 species will attend. You are the newest potential members, so you will speak last. Kate leaned toward Jack. "Look at their technology. It's advanced but different from ours. Their solutions seem to avoid high energy use." Jack nodded. He had noticed the same thing. Earth technology often used brute force approaches, powerful engines, strong materials. Here, everything seemed designed to use minimal resources. They arrived at their quarters. 3 connected rooms with viewports showing the swirl of stars outside. Ziv handed them information tablets. "These contain summit protocols. Please study them. Many behaviors humans consider normal are seen as threatening. Your survival adaptations are concerning to some delegates." After Ziv left, Alan scrolled through the tablet. "This is worse than I expected. We can't show our teeth when smiling. No sudden movements. No raised voices. They even suggest we take medication to reduce our strength while here." Kate shook her head. "I won't drug myself just to make aliens comfortable." Jack agreed. "We'll be careful, but we remain human." Later that evening, they attended a pre-summit reception. The grand hall filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Jack noticed how most aliens maintained distance from the human group. "Don't take it personally," Alan said. "To them, we're apex predators." Jack moved to the refreshment area, careful to make his movements slow and predictable. As he reached for a drink, another hand, covered in gray scales with sharp claws, reached for the same glass. Jack looked up into the face of a Kravak. The reptilian alien was tall, with amber eyes that held the same alertness Jack had seen in combat veterans. The armored plates on its body shifted slightly as it moved. "You must be human," the Kravak said in a rumbling voice. "I am Vorik, diplomatic representative of the Kravak Collective." Jack noticed that other aliens had moved away from them both. Jack Harlow, Earth delegation. Seems we're both making people nervous. Vorik made a sound that might have been a laugh. Deathworlders tend to do that. They find our very existence disturbing. Before Jack could respond, a loud crack echoed through the station. The floor vibrated. Then alarms began to wail. "Structural breach in Sector 8, announced a computerized voice. "Emergency protocols activated." Aliens panicked, moving in all directions. Jack saw a small, frail delegate get knocked down in the chaos. Without thinking, he moved, faster than he should have, weaving through the crowd. The station shuddered again. A ceiling panel broke free, falling toward the fallen delegate. Jack lunged forward, catching the heavy panel with both hands. The weight would have crushed a human on Earth, but in the lower gravity, Jack held it up. Across the room, he saw Vorik watching him with what might have been respect. The Kravak nodded once before moving to help secure another damaged section. The danger passed quickly, but Jack knew something had changed. They had seen what a human could do. Some would be grateful. Others would be more afraid than ever. The days after the station incident passed in a blur of meetings. Jack spoke at the main summit, carefully explaining that humans wanted peace and trade, not conquest. Some delegates seemed to listen. Others watched him like he was a bomb that might explode. Kate spent most of her time in the science wing of the station. One evening, she rushed into Jack's quarters, her face pale. "I found something," she said, keeping her voice low. "Look at this." She showed him her tablet. On it were biological scans of human and Kravak bodies, along with detailed notes. "Where did you get this?" Jack asked. "I accessed the science database to learn about other species. These files were hidden, but not well enough. Someone is studying us intensely. Our muscle density, reaction times, brain chemistry. They're especially interested in how we respond to threats." Jack frowned. "Who would do this?" "The files are linked to High Commissioner Zale's office. He's the head of the Security Council." Alan joined them, closing the door quietly behind him. "That's not all. I found historical records about another Deathworld species from 200 years ago. The Tarkin. They were given Confederation membership, then suddenly disappeared from all records." "Disappeared how?" Jack asked. "It doesn't say. Every reference to them after a certain date just stops. It's like they never existed." Jack paced the room, careful not to move too quickly. "We need to know more. And we need to talk to Vorik." Finding the Kravak diplomat wasn't easy. Eventually, Jack located her in a seldom-used observation deck, staring at the stars. "I was wondering when you would seek me out," Vorik said without turning around. Jack stood beside her. "Did you know someone is studying us? Looking for weaknesses?" Vorik's scales shifted slightly, a sign of tension. Jack had learned. "Yes, they did the same to my people when we first arrived. Commissioner Zale believes Deathworlders are a threat to galactic peace." "And the Tarkin? Do you know what happened to them?" Vorik turned to face him. "Only rumors. They were restricted to their home system. When they objected, there was conflict. They were wiped out, perhaps, or quarantined somewhere. My government has tried to learn more, but those records are sealed at the highest levels." Jack felt a chill. "So they might do the same to Earth, to your world." "It is possible." Vorik's amber eyes narrowed. "But there is more happening. Have you heard about the pirate attacks on the outer systems?" Jack nodded. "Mentioned in the security briefings." "Why?" "The attacks are too effective. Pirates shouldn't be able to defeat Confederation defenses so easily." They were interrupted by Kate's voice on Jack's communicator. "Jack, you need to see this. Now." They met in a quiet service corridor. Kate showed them new files she had discovered. "It's a plan," she explained. "Zale wants to classify both Earth and the Kravak homeworld as containment zones. No travel in or out without special permission." Elen pointed to another section of text. "They're voting on it tomorrow. If it passes, both our species will be effectively imprisoned in our home systems." "Why now?" Jack wondered. "This might be why," Kate said, showing another file. "Long-range scans have detected something entering Confederation space. Something big. Zale's report calls it a security matter, but provides no details." Vorik hissed softly. "They fear what comes, yet they wish to cage those who might help them fight." Jack looked at the stars through a nearby viewport. "We need proof of what Zale is planning. And we need to know what's really coming toward Confederation space." "How do we get that proof?" Elen asked. Jack turned to Vorik. "Together. If Deathworlders are being targeted, then Deathworlders should work together." Vorik's mouth opened in what Jack now recognized as a Kravak smile. "Yes. Let us show them what happens when Deathworlders unite." Jack woke to the sound of alarms. Red emergency lights flashed in his quarters. He grabbed his small bag of essential items, always packed, a habit from his military days, and rushed to the door. In the hallway, he found Kate and Alan already waiting. "What's happening?" Jack asked. "The station is under attack," Kate said. "Unknown ships docked at the far section 20 minutes ago." The station shook with a distant explosion. Through the viewport at the end of the hall, Jack saw ships firing at each other. One ship broke apart in a bright flash. "We need to get to our shuttle," Jack said. "If this place is taken over, we can't be here." They moved quickly through the corridors. Other delegates rushed in all directions. Some were crying. Others stood frozen in fear. Near the main conference room, they heard weapons fire. Jack signaled for Kate and Alan to stop and pressed himself against the wall. He peered carefully around the corner. Armed figures in dark armor were herding delegates into the room. Their weapons were advanced, but Jack recognized standard tactical formations. These weren't pirates. They moved like trained soldiers. One of the attackers spoke to another. "Commissioner Zale wants all delegates secured, especially the Deathworlders." Jack pulled back. This isn't a random attack. It's targeted, and Zale is involved. "But why attack his own station?" Elan whispered. "To control the situation," Kate suggested. "Maybe to force emergency powers." A rough hand grabbed Jack's shoulder. He spun around, ready to fight, then stopped. It was Vorik. "Your shuttle bay is blocked," the Kravak said. "I have another way out." Vorik led them through maintenance tunnels, moving with the silence of a natural predator. They passed several groups of panicked delegates without being seen. "Where are we going?" Jack asked. "Transport dock C-12. It's used for supply ships. I have a small vessel there." They turned a corner and found 3 armed attackers guarding the doorway. Before Jack could plan a response, Vorik moved. She was incredibly fast, taking down 2 guards before they could raise their weapons. Jack reacted instantly, tackling the 3rd. The fight was over in seconds. "Impressive," Jack said, looking at Vorik with new respect. She nodded. "For a human, you are not slow." Beyond the door was a small docking bay. A slender alien with pale blue skin was waiting there, hiding behind cargo containers. When she saw them, she stood up. "Vorik, you found them." "This is Nyx Era," Vorik explained. "An Illuvian scientist. She has studied both our worlds and tried to warn the Confederation about Zale's plans." Nyx Era was shorter than Jack, with large eyes and delicate limbs. She looked fragile compared to the humans and Kravak. "We must hurry," she said in a soft voice. "More security forces are coming." They boarded a small transport ship. Nyx Era took the pilot's seat while Vorik checked weapon systems. Jack looked out the viewport and saw more armed figures entering the dock. "They found us," he warned. The ship's engines hummed to life. Weapons fire hit the hull as they lifted off. The deck below them filled with attackers. "Hold on," Nyx Era said as she guided the ship toward the open bay doors. They shot out into space. Larger ships were engaged in battle around the station. Their small vessel slipped between them. "I have received a message from my contacts," Nyx Era said. "Similar attacks are happening at all major Confederation facilities. Human and Kravak delegations are being detained everywhere." "So we're cut off," Kate said. "Earth can't help us." Jack watched as Harmony Station grew smaller behind them. "Where can we go?" "I know a place," Vorik said. "An abandoned mining outpost near the border systems. We will be safe there while we plan our next move." As their ship accelerated away from the battle, Jack realized they were now fugitives. But they were also the only ones who knew the truth about Zell's conspiracy. The mining outpost hung in space like a forgotten toy. Its metal walls were dark except for a few emergency lights. As their ship docked, Jack felt uneasy. The place was too quiet. "No one has been here for 10 cycles, Vorik explained. "The minerals ran out, and the Confederation moved operations elsewhere." They entered the main living area. Dust covered everything. Alan found the power controls and brought the life support systems online. "We should be safe here for a while," Nyx Era said. "Long-range sensors will warn us if anyone approaches." Jack turned to the slender alien. "Now tell us what you know. Why is Zale targeting Deathworlders?" Nyx Era's large eyes blinked slowly. "Please sit. This will take some time." They gathered around a table in what had once been a mess hall. Nyx Era activated a small device that projected images into the air. "For centuries, the Confederation has lived in peace," she began. "Most member species evolved on worlds with stable environments. Their bodies are adapted for efficiency, not survival, under harsh conditions." The projection showed various aliens, all with delicate features compared to humans or Kravak. They built a society based on cooperation, not competition. They forgot how to fight real wars. Their weapons are designed for policing actions, not true combat. Kate leaned forward. What does this have to do with us? 200 years ago, the Confederation encountered the Tarkin. The image changed to show a stocky, muscular species with thick skin. They were Deathworlders, like you. Strong, aggressive, adaptable. The Confederation feared them, just as they fear you now. What happened to them? Jack asked. Nixera's voice grew softer. They were the first to encounter the Void Heralds. The projection changed to show something that looked part machine, part organic. It had multiple limbs and a body that seemed to shift and change. The Void Heralds are an ancient machine intelligence from beyond our galaxy. They consume worlds and convert materials into more of themselves. The Tarkin fought them and warned the Confederation about the threat. Let me guess, Jack said. The Confederation didn't listen. Worse, Nixera replied. Many leaders believed the Tarkin had invented this enemy to justify building up their military. When the Void Heralds attacked the first Confederation world, they were unprepared. Vorik made a low growling sound. And the Tarkin. They died defending a Confederation colony world. Their entire fleet was destroyed. Afterward, many Confederation officials were ashamed of how they had treated the Tarkin. Others worried that acknowledging the sacrifice would encourage more aggressive behavior from member species. So they erased them from history, Alan said. Nixera nodded. But some of us remembered. Some of us realized that the Confederation needs Deathworlders. Jack stood up and walked to a viewport. Stars glittered in the darkness. The Void Heralds are coming back, aren't they? Yes. Our long-range sensors detected them 3 months ago. They will reach Confederation space within weeks. Commissioner Zale and his supporters believe surrender is better than embracing the barbaric traits of Deathworlders. They would rather give up than fight. Kate shook her head in disbelief. That's why they're isolating humans and Kruvak. They don't want our help. A sudden beeping sound came from the station's console. Alan rushed over to check it. It's a distress signal, he reported, coming from a nearby system. They crowded around the screen. A colony world was sending out an emergency call. The message was breaking up, but they could make out words like attack and unknown ships. Jack looked at Vorik. Their eyes met in understanding. The Void Heralds, Vorik said quietly. We should help them, Jack said. Nixera looked startled. That would be extremely dangerous. Yes, Jack agreed. But it's also our chance to prove what Deathworlders can do, and to gather evidence about our real enemy. Vorik placed a clawed hand on Jack's shoulder. I agree. We go to fight. For the first time, Jack felt true kinship with the alien warrior. They were different species from different worlds, but in this moment, they understood each other perfectly. Their small ship approached the colony world of Clea. From orbit, they could see fires burning across the main settlement. Several damaged ships drifted nearby, and the colony's defense station was dark and silent. No response to our signals, Kate said from the communication panel. But I'm picking up life signs in the central complex. Jack studied the sensor readings. Looks like about 200 colonists are trapped inside, and something else is surrounding the building. Nixera adjusted the sensors. Void Herald scout drones, the first wave of their invasion force. How do we fight them? Ellen asked. Vorik checked the ship's limited weapons. These will not be enough. We must go to the surface and help the colonists directly. Jack nodded. Nixera, can you fly close enough for us to land, then stay in orbit to provide support? The Illuvian looked nervous but determined. Yes, I can do that. They entered the planet's atmosphere through thick clouds. Nixera skillfully guided their ship toward the colony's landing pad. As they got closer, they saw the Void Herald drones clearly for the first time. The machines moved on multiple legs. Each one was about the size of a small car. Their bodies seemed to shift and change as they moved, adapting to the environment. Some had weapon-like appendages, while others had cutting tools. They surrounded the colony's main building in a slowly tightening circle. "They're trying to break through the walls," Jack observed. Their ship touched down on a pad a short distance from the main complex. Jack and Vorik prepared to leave, gathering what weapons they had. "Kate, Alan, you're with us," Jack said. "We'll need everyone for this." They exited the ship into Klee's thin atmosphere. The gravity was lighter than Earth, but heavier than on the space station. Jack felt strong here. Beside him, Vorik seemed to stand taller as well. "The entrance is blocked," Kate pointed out. Several drones were gathered at the main door. "We'll make our own way in," Vorik said. She pointed to a maintenance hatch on the building side. They moved quickly across open ground, keeping low. The drones seemed focused on breaking into the building and didn't notice them at first. When one drone turned toward them, Jack fired his weapon. The energy beam hit the machine, causing it to stagger back. But then something strange happened. The drone's surface shifted, becoming more reflective. When Jack fired again, the beam bounced off. "They adapt," Vorik hissed. "Each attack works only once." They reached the maintenance hatch. Alan worked on the lock while the others kept watch. Finally, the door opened, and they slipped inside. The colonists were gathered in the central hall, mostly Illuvians like Nixara, with a few other Confederation species. When they saw Jack and Vorik, many backed away in fear. "We're here to help," Jack announced. "The station is under attack by Void Heralds." An older Illuvian stepped forward. "I am Administrator Len. Our defenses failed quickly. Those machines adapt to whatever we use against them." A loud bang shook the building. The drones were breaking through. "We need to get these people to our ship," Kate said. Jack looked around the room, his mind racing. "We need weapons that can't be predicted. Vorik, help me gather materials." What followed showed why Deathworlders were both feared and needed. Jack and Vorik began improvising weapons from the colonists' equipment, mechanical traps, chemical mixtures, even using the building's systems in ways they weren't designed for. Alan organized the colonists into groups for evacuation. Kate established communication with their ship, coordinating with Nixara for pickup zones. When the drones finally broke through one wall, they faced a series of traps and attacks that didn't follow any pattern the machines could adapt to. Jack used his military training, while Vorik applied hunting techniques from her world. Together, they confused the predictable machine intelligence. "It's working," Alan shouted as they cleared a path to the ship. But success came at a cost. As they led the last group of colonists out, a drone broke through the ceiling. Alan pushed several young Illuvians out of the way as debris fell. A heavy beam struck him, pinning him to the floor. "Alan!" Kate screamed. Jack rushed to Alan's side. The beam had crushed Alan's leg and pinned him to the floor. Blood spread in a growing puddle. "We need to move this," Jack said. He gripped the beam, muscles straining. Even with his human strength, it was too heavy. Vorik joined him. Together, they lifted the beam enough for Kate to pull Alan free. She quickly wrapped his leg with fabric torn from her jacket. "He needs medical help soon," she said. They carried Alan to the ship where the colonists were already boarding. Nixara had landed as close as possible, avoiding the Void Herald drones with skillful piloting. Once everyone was aboard, they took off. The ship groaned under the weight of so many passengers. They watched from the viewport as more Void Herald ships descended toward the colony. "We saved these people, but we lost the colony," Jack said. Vorik stood beside him. "But we have something more valuable: evidence and knowledge of how the enemy fights." In the ship's small medical bay, Kate worked to stabilize Alan. His face was pale, but he was conscious. "Did everyone make it?" he asked weakly. "Yes," Jack assured him. "Every colonist is safe because of you." Administrator Len approached them. "Thank you for saving my people. I have been in contact with nearby Confederation outposts. They are sending ships to help the refugees. Will you tell them what really attacked your colony? Jack asked. Len hesitated. Many will not want to believe. But I will tell the truth. The Void Heralds have returned, and we were saved by Deathworlders. Over the next day, they made plans. The ship's communication system was basic, but Kate managed to establish contact with Earth using the colony's emergency channels. Earth and the Kravak homeworld are on high alert, she reported. Both governments know something is wrong. They're preparing for possible isolation or conflict. We need to spread the truth widely, Jack said. If we only tell a few people, Zale can cover it up again. Vorik agreed. We must split up. Reach more people at once. The plan came together quickly. They would take the colonists to the nearest safe station. From there, they would separate into groups. Jack and I will go to Fortress Prime, Vorik said. It is the main Confederation military base. The fleet commanders must be warned directly. I'll go with Nix Era to the science conclave on Eos, Kate said. The scientists will listen to evidence. What about me? Alan asked from his bed. His leg was bandaged, but he couldn't walk. You stay with Len. And the colonists, Jack told him. They need someone to help tell their story. When they reached the transfer station, Administrator Len provided them with identification passes and transport arrangements. Not all Confederation citizens fear Deathworlders, he told them. Many of us recognize your value. Before separating, they gathered one last time. Be careful, Kate said to Jack and Vorik. Fortress Prime will be heavily guarded. The Science Conclave will have its challenges too, Jack replied. Many there support Zale's views. Vorik placed her hand on Jack's shoulder. We have learned to work together, human. That is what our enemies do not expect. Jack nodded. Deathworlders united. Jack and Vorik boarded a transport ship bound for Fortress Prime. The journey would take 2 days. They used the time to prepare, studying the station's layout and security systems. If we fail, Vorik said as they approached the massive space fortress, our worlds may be cut off when the real enemy arrives. Jack checked his identification pass. It would get them inside, but not to the restricted areas where the fleet commanders worked. We won't fail, he said. Deathworlders are good at doing the impossible. Through the viewport, Fortress Prime grew larger, a massive structure bristling with weapon systems and surrounded by warships. Somewhere inside was their best hope for saving both their worlds and the entire Confederation.